Hello, so welcome back to my channel. If you've seen my previous videos, or welcome to my channel if you're a first time viewer. So a few days ago I was going through my previous Benimar review video as a new owner and noticed that I had over 2,000 people view it, and not only view it but they watched the majority of the video. So I was obviously saying something that interested people. So I thought it might be worth doing a follow-up. We've now had the Benimar 463 for, it'll be 3 years in June. It's now April, so we've had the van 3 years, and maybe I thought it would be a good idea just to go through some of the issues or the experiences we've had with the van. So if you have watched my previous video, you'll see that I've got a slightly better but grey hairstyle, and I'm still wearing the same top. So who says motorhomers have got money? We don't have. We just have priorities on what we spend our money on, and clothing is not my priority. So anyhow, further ado, the van. Right, so I'll talk about the first bit and the easiest bit first, which was the Ford Transit base. We've done, it's coming up to 16,000 miles. The first year we had the van was locked down, so there wasn't a huge amount we could do, so we went to the lakes, and we toured around Scotland with just about everyone else in the country at the time. Second year, so last year, we went back to doing our European road trip. So we drove down to Annecy via France, and then back home to the Amsterdam port via Geneva and Germany. And this year we're planning to do pretty much the same, only this time we're going to go from Dover. So we've got to drive down the length of the country just about to get to Dover, and then we're going to go down to Annecy through France. So we've covered, when we had the old van, we used to do about 8,000 miles a year, so we haven't done as many miles in the van as we would normally do, but I think that's been down to lockdown restrictions, and also we've now got a 3-year-old, so we have other bits and pieces on at the weekend, so we can't get away that much. But anyhow, overall, on a slow drive you get about 30 miles to the gallon out the van, taking it easy. That's fully loaded. We also travel, because we do a lot of wild camping, we travel with the water tank full, so you've kind of got to expect not to get the top end of the miles per gallon if you're carrying excessive weight. So yeah, so, and by the way, the van has been updated to 4 tons, so we have got that additional payload, which I'll explain about which I explained about in the previous video. So yeah, we're doing about 16,000 miles, and we're getting between 26 and 28 miles per gallon. Slightly lower if we go up to the lakes where it's slower roads up and down it, and etc. The van itself has been, we've had, touch wood, we've had no problems with it. It's had its services through a Ford main dealer because of the warranty. The only problem we had is we got the recall on the injectors. Now I'm sure people you've probably read online, it's quite commonly documented that the injectors fail and it sends it in limp mode and whatnot. There's a few theories about where the vans have been left for long periods of times, moisture gets into injectors, that corrode, and that causes a problem. We used to use our van, if not every weekend, every other weekend, and a lot over the winter, so although we don't do huge miles, it doesn't get left for long periods of time. But yes, so we had it recalled, and apparently they updated the software on the injectors. So touch wood, we've not had any problems, even though we left the van from the beginning of the year. In fact, it was before Christmas till the beginning of March. It was just parked up, it fired up, no bother, and we've been away a few times in it since, and again, touch wood, we've not had any problems. So the van will be going in June. It'll be due its first MOT. I'm not expecting any problems, possibly a couple of advisories on the front tyres, which I'm aware of, but apart from that, it's got its MOT, and it'll have its 3rd habitation check from Marquis. So going on to that, the habitation checks, and when we first got the van, there there was a few bits and pieces went wrong with the van when we first got it, but don't expect to buy a piece of equipment as complicated as this and not expect to have the odd niggly problems. Going around the van, we had the outer gel covering of one of the rear doors had cracked, and the crack was getting longer and longer every time you used the van. Initially, Marquis and Benimar rejected that claim, saying that we'd done it through damage, but when I actually took it in as part of the habitation check, I explained there was no impact marks, there was no damage. I couldn't have done it, and I knew I hadn't done it. So they replaced the rear garage door on the passenger side under the warranty, which was great. But then a few months down the line, we then started to get a leak in that door where the seal had failed. But because we had carpet in the boot to protect the floor and stuff, the carpet had acted up like a sponge, so it got very wet in there. But thankfully, the seal's been replaced and we've got a nice dry boot. And we do get, when we're wild camping in the winter, or camping in general in the winter, you do get a bit of moisture build up because you're sleeping above that boot. But I've found just putting a couple of the moisture catchers in there kind of helps that problem. And as soon as we get up in the morning, if the weather's okay, open the doors to get a bit of fresh air through. So I've had that door done. When we first picked the van up, we had a little bit of a leak in the shower, but the leak was going straight out the van onto the wheel arch, so there wasn't any moisture getting into the van. Again, Marquis stripped all the shower down and they did a bit of resealing and whatnot. And again, touch wood, that seemed to have sorted that. Let's have a think. What else have we had replaced? The catches. So you've got your plug hole and your sink, which I've got in the bathroom and the kitchen. The little kind of plastic case that the water goes into before going down the pipes to the drains. I've had to replace both of them. They're just, as Marcus said, everything's made to be light and they are quite brittle. I don't know if we could have made them last a bit longer, but at the end of the day, they were 20 quid. So the bathroom one went first. And to be fair, the way they're fitted to the sink, there's just one little screw in the middle that's taken all the weight, and if it's caught when you're moving something out the cupboard, and the same with the drawers, if something gets caught in the drawer and it catches that drain thing, it's not got a huge area that it's attached to, so the little plastic, it's broke. So maybe we've done it, maybe it's just a weak part in the van, I don't know, but 20 quid, and I replaced it myself in about 20 minutes. We found I wanted my third spring on the catch for the main fridge. Again, I tried going through the warranty, but I think you can buy the springs for a couple of quid online. I ended up just buying a load of them, and I've got them in the glove box, and when the spring snaps, you just replace it. Let's have a think. We've had no other problems. There was the odd squeaks and rattles that Marcus took panels off and retightened. We had a couple of the catches wouldn't catch properly. Nothing major. In fact, I think we were quite lucky considering how complicated the van is. On the first habitation check, everything went through fine. Last habitation check, so it would have been last year, we had the igniter for the oven replaced because that failed, and we also had the switch for the panel, whatever it is, where if there's a problem with your electric hookup it should trip. We had that replaced. When they tested it, it would have tripped sooner than later, so it wasn't actually unsafe, but we still got that replaced on the warranty, and so we've had that sorted. And then recently, when we had the cold spell in December last year, so 2022, I tried to get into the van via the habitation door, and just to check everything was okay in the van. We hadn't been in for a few weeks and it had been particularly cold. When I unlocked the door and pulled the handle, it snapped. The mechanism inside snapped, so we could get out the van from the inside, but we couldn't get in the van from the outside. And typically that was out of warranty. Whether it was a faulty part, I'm not sure. The lock's always been funny since we got the van. But I just thought that was how it was. But now we've had a new lock put on, which we've had to pay for. It does feel a lot different. So in hindsight, I should have probably picked up the problem with Marquis while it was under warranty, but you know, these things happen. Annoyingly, out of principle, because we were just out of warranty, I tried to change the lock myself, but couldn't get the door skin off. Took it to an independent motorhome specialist. They couldn't get the door skin off to access the lock. So, and then I ended up having to take it to Marquis, and they're charging hours labour. So, sometimes you have to pay the specialists because they know what to do, basically. So yeah, that was a new locking mechanism, which was the best part of 350 quid, which wasn't great. But as people say to us, they're expensive things, and when they do go wrong, it's going to cost money to fix them. So that's pretty much, you know, before I go on, I'm not complaining. I'm not, the van's brilliant, we love it. And to be fair, we use it a lot more than the average person does, which if you use it quite often, you're going to expect things and wear and tear. Although I was hoping the 3-year-old van would have a little bit more life to it than locks and that breaking at this point. You know, I'm not complaining. It's just, this is a factual video of what we've had done to the van in the last 3 years / well, nearly 3 years / 16,000 miles. One little twiddly thing that really annoys us, what I've found, is the chrome gel badges delaminate. We've already had the 6 replaced on one of the doors, which was done under warranty, thankfully, but now the wording on the back of the van, 2 of the letters have gone. And I know it's not a major thing, but when you spend this sort of money, you expect the badges that are advertising the brand to last a bit longer than 3 years. But anyhow, I've discovered that you have to buy the full badge. You can't just buy the individual numbers or letters. Marcus very kindly said to see if they had any in stock, but they didn't. So I'm waiting for a quote to find out how much it is to buy the full badge, which I'm not expecting to be cheap. And if the laminating's gonna fail after a couple of years on each letter, or is another one gonna go? So what I've decided to do is, I've actually, as I'm a graphic designer, I've found the font and I've replicated the badges. So as a badge goes, as a badge delaminates, I'm going to just take the whole lot off and replace it with a chrome or black vinyl graphic, and that'll last longer, and in the long run it'll be cheaper. But I just think little things like that, you know, when it's Benimar's brand, you know, they should at least offer to replace the failed badges or fix them, you know, within a 3-4 years. So, but anyhow, that's some people like my wife just can't see the problem. She doesn't even notice it, but for me, I do like to keep the van clean. It gets washed most of the time. Most times we've been away for a period of time, it'll get a wash when it comes back, and I tend to wash the roof once every 3 months just to keep on top of that, because every 3 months is just a quick wipe down, as opposed to leaving it for a year and you have to get more specialist cleaning products involved in this, that and the other. I also find if you keep the roof clean, it minimises the run lines down the side of the van where the water runs off. So I find that the time I take to do the roof, it saves me in the long run not having to wash the grey dirty run lines off the side of the van. Sorry, just going back to the bits and pieces we've had done. Just remember the window, the perspex glass of the window was sitting too close to the frame, so when the van was moving, the glass was, or the plastic perspex was catching the frame, and it left like a hole in the black frame. So we've had that window frame replaced. That was very early doors. I think that was on the first service we got that done. Apart from that, everything's been great. Yeah, we are. Oh god, another thing I'm thinking right back here. So this is what I mean. It's just a conversation. I've not got an itinerary or anything. It's just a conversation I would have with friends if I was asked the same question. We've had all 3 pieces of the back mattress replaced because the material was just going threadbare, and it just the springs on a few of them went. So we've got a full set of spares in the house now. We're still getting the use out of the original ones, and we're just going to use them until they're no longer usable, and then we'll put the new ones in. Hopefully we'll get another 3 years out of them. But yeah, just running around. We've had no problems with the drop down bed. I've read a few articles of it locking out or tripping or whatever, but we very rarely use it. It's more of a storage area for coats and jackets. No, I think that's it. One thing I would warn people of, obviously the up plate and these don't have a very big payload, and if you want to go touring and take bikes and kayaks and all the bits and pieces we take, prams, buggies, whatever, you can go overweight very quickly. So I would recommend to plate at 4 ton, which is great in this country, but you do find you get hammered on the French toll roads because you're then in the higher class payment. So when we're traveling in France, I mean, we've only done it last year, but we'll be doing it this year, we just avoid the toll roads, which actually is quite nice because you get to see nicer parts of France if you keep off the motorways. And it doesn't, you know, when you're touring, we've got a 3-4-year-old now, we don't do long days on the road. It's nice to take with time and stop off as we're going down there. The overhang on the back, about 6 weeks after I got the van, I got a shock when I was going into a car park that I've used many times before. Now a little Sprinter we had, I caught the back. Thankfully it was just, it ended up scraping it and not damaging any of the panels, and I managed to sand the scrape out. So I was quite lucky with that, and I'm glad it happened in a way, because it gave us that shock to now remind us that some of the places we used to go to in the old Sprinter van is not as accessible in this van. So it is just something, if you're going on to more of a rural campsite, or, you know, like we used to do the Beat in the Bar in Scotland in the old van, and I would never dream of doing this, not because of the width, I'm quite a confident driver, but it's just the switchbacks. Someone just walking past the van. The switchbacks and the overhang, I don't want to be pulling any bumpers off, because I've been told they're like £1,600 for the bumper kit, and then there's a fit and all that. So yeah, I would just be, if you're a first time motorhomer and you've not driven something as long, I would be aware of the overhang. And that's it really. Overall, really pleased with the van. I mean, it's a huge investment. We're quite lucky where the van, we've had it 3 years now, and it's worth a lot more than what we paid for it, because we bought it before COVID, when vans weren't really moving much, where now everyone wants them, or maybe it's starting to tail off a bit. So it's quite reassuring that we had this van, we've had 3 years worth of usage, and we could give it back to the dealer and get more money than we paid for it. So that's quite nice. And like I say, I'm still wearing the jumper I was wearing 3 years ago, so it's not as if we've got lots of cash. It's just we have priorities and where we spend our money, and our motorhome and holidays is where we like to spend it. The table's quite heavy. Seen lots of people put smaller ones in. Yeah, could be something we'll look at in the future, but we've got away with it now. We travel with a table on the bed wrapped up so it can't fall off, and that's that. But yes, so the Benimar T463 2020 Ford Transit model, very happy with it, and by all means have a look through my video, my previous video I made of when we just got the van, as a comparison. And yeah, just any questions you have that I might not have covered, feel free to just drop me a line, drop me a message in the comments, and I'll try my best to respond. Thanks for watching.